Maybe here's another question for you then is, why does it matter to you so much? Like personally, why does this idea of using creativity as a force for social transformation matter to you?
Um, I think it matters to me because it talks about my experience. It's about my experience. Um, I grew up in Italy. My mom is Italian. My dad was from Senegal
Okay.
and Gambia. Uh, so I grew up in Italy. I was born in the early '80s, and and I grew up as the only black kid in my community. So I was the only black kid in elementary school, actually in kindergarten, in elementary school, in middle school, in high school, in university, um, in my basketball team, in my
Wow.
judo team.
Wow, wow,
So,
wow, wow.
yeah, so so it was quite something, and especially in a country like Italy, where I can say that if you were born in the '80s as Italian, in Italy, you're part of the first generation of Black Italians.
Got it.
So there's even like an absence of language. There's an absence of community.
Yes.
Um, and and so I grew up in this context. Then I started traveling, and I did and I did my university. I traveled, and then my consciousness and my sense of identity was started changing and was started forming.
Yes.
And within that space, really, creativity was one of the most important things that could save me at the time. Creativity and culture, because it was it was that element. It was not about the materiality of things. Also, because I have to say, and this is, I think it's important for me to say, I grew up privileged. I grew up in a fairly, bourgeois family.
Yeah.
I didn't have to, too much struggle. I had a, happy childhood,
Yeah.
and things like
Mm.
that. So, but nevertheless, the complexity that I was facing on a personal level were connected to all elements that needed exploration, that needed language, that needed experiences, and the space of creativity of culture were really the field through which I can found myself
Awesome.
and I can build my own sense of identity. Um, so so I had, if fast forward in my mid 20s, I had a lot to meet some of the people, some of the um, gatekeepers, or the most important people, the spin doctor, or the contemporary African art movement. Let's call it this way.
Yes.
Um, People like Simon Jami, like Billy Bichoka, and so for the first time, I was also exposed to the complexity of the artistic production and thinking that it was connected to Africa and its diaspora, and that was another moment in which I could grow personally, and so in a way, everything that I do is somehow connected to creativity, and everything that I could build on and that formed me was connected, directly or indirectly to creativity and culture. So because this is what kind of emancipate me personally at a personal level,
Yeah.
that is something that I can see the power of. And I would like to figure out ways and strategies and mechanisms uh, to somehow distill some of those elements and try to put them in programs that can systematically support young people to develop the skills that they need to have in order to thrive in the world.
That is so fantastic, and thank you for sharing that because my journey into the world of creativity and culture comes from advertising. So my entry point was I was born in Soweto, and I was smart, good in science, good in math. So the assumption was that you're going to become a doctor until somebody said blood was involved and we had to change tact and think of something else. So then I ended, and I can't recall at whose dinner I was at. Well, and that person said, if you're not clear about what you want to study, just study a liberal arts degree because it truly is just going to open your mind up. And that's what I ended up doing, majoring in communication sociology. The first body of work I wrote was around the idea of representation in advertising. And I've always, therefore, been interested in just how the consumer who's Black is represented in advertising. At the time, I didn't know that that work would later inform every other choice I've made in my life since then. But if there is a golden thread that runs through my life, it's this idea of identity formation, meaning making, and the reproduction of image and how image informs identity. So my entry point into creativity was the alternative to medicine, and I'm glad I did because it's the only sector I think that then can accommodate my madness and just the way and just how my brain functions. So thank you for sharing that because actually this we run this on YouTube as a show called Full Circle with Zah, and often at the end of every interaction I ask my guests, what does full circle mean to you? And you've almost responded to it inadvertently by literally saying my identity formation started in the creative and culture space, and here I am now as CEO of Moleskine Foundation. You literally have a formal structure through which to channel your original intent. Would that be an accurate assessment?
I think it does. I think it does, and I think the interesting part is that I had no clue about it until I was this is maybe is too informal, too personal, but just recently I met somebody that I, I met my sweetheart of many years ago, and it was something like maybe I don't know 20, little bit less than 20 years that we didn't see each other.
Yep.
And for the things that I thought I was doing at the time, I said, probably, because she knew me more for my interest in international development and all these things and all the jazz and I said, you wouldn't believe it, but I co-founded an organization dealing with creativity called Moleskine Foundation, and I open an art gallery sometimes back, and I'm dealing with art, and thinking that I would just shock her, and she was saying, "That's obvious, Adama." That's like, what do you mean it's obvious? Yeah, that's what you were always talking about art. You were always referencing, creativity. You were always getting into liberal arts. You were always quoting or like dealing, and I was like, really? I thought that would have shot. It's like, no, man. Like this is the most obvious thing that you could tell me, and so it's interesting. It's interesting because at the time that was not even in in my universe, but somehow I guess that praxis and experience and rituals and habits then form a creative pattern subconsciously that then at some point comes to fruition.
Isn't that fantastic? I think it also just takes us back to this idea of your purpose, right? Because purpose, even though it's a word that's been so overutilized, it's lost its fantastic meaning. I think eventually when we all look back at the sum total of the things we've been able to accomplish, whether personally or professionally, you can start to see this golden thread that informs the choices you are making and the company you keep. So wow, so well done. I celebrate that for you because then it means you're in flow, right?
I guess sometimes I have some doubts, but yes, I take that. Yeah, I agree.
I know the last time we spoke, you had referenced the work that you're doing with Wikipedia. Are you able to share more
Yeah.
on it, and what does success look like for that particular project?
Yeah, sure. We because I like to talk about this project because it has also a lot to do with South Africa and our partnership with Constitution Hill and Con Hill Trust.
Oh my God.
And we did a program last year. Well, sorry, 2019, end of 2019. It was called Wiki Africa Education in an event called Afro Curation.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, what is Wiki Africa Education? Well, in a nutshell, we believe, as you know, the Moleskine Foundation will deal with creativity, but creativity we can also say that is a function of knowledge. If you don't know anything about yourself, if you don't know about your environment, if you don't know about your own identity, about your own history, it's very hard to be creative in a meaningful way. So the connection between creativity and knowledge is extremely important
Yeah.
for us. So because we deal with the continent, um, there is something that we noticed, and that the fact that there are very few accurate information about the African continent online. And and so some years back, we look at Wikipedia as this unique space of free knowledge,
Mm.
and and till now, there are more information about the city of Paris than about the entire African continent on Wikipedia. And and obviously, when you look at it from that standpoint, you clearly see there is something that is not working. Because at the same time, Wikipedia is the fifth most used website in the world. So there is an issue. Before you were talking about representation and images, try to imagine their presentation in knowledge online.
Mm.
And when we look at this, we look at it in English, we look at it in French, we look at it in Portuguese, but the gap is even greater when we look at African languages. So we thought, okay, let's try to think about something and how we can support and contribute to cover this gap and to reduce this gap. And basically, the result was this program called Wiki Africa Education, where the idea is literally to transform young people from the continent and from the diaspora from passive knowledge consumers to active knowledge producers. So now, writing encyclopedic entries
Yes.
online, it's an act of activism. It's literally activism. It's really being a change maker. Because in a moment of absence, this is really of something. It goes back to this idea of we generate, we create. There's a doing connected to generation, something for the collectivity. So how does this big idea boil down to an event, to a project, to something concrete? And the best example I can give you is what we did, the two events that we ran last year 2019 with Constitution Hill, where we brought together around 200 young people from Johannesburg and from the Gauteng area, and they had a day basically exposed to the history of the Constitution. And so they had the chance, or for half a day, to experience people like Judge Edwin Cameron or Advocate Dumisa Tembeza, and many other protagonists of the history of South Africa and of the Constitution, not only the struggle, but then also of the contemporary time. And then, so obviously it was a moment of inspiration. It was a moment of knowledge. But then the day didn't end up there. Then we said, okay, now what you have learned, you need to put it on Wiki in your own language. And so the students, basically, they learn how to use Wikipedia. They had a training. They learned how to work collaboratively. And the results were that in one day, more than 190 entries were created about the Constitution in Xhosa, in Venda, in isiZulu, in Afrikaans, etc. So now the result of it is that not only these young people learn about the history, about the Constitution, having this unique experience to meet all these incredible people, they also made something about it and wrote something and wrote part of these entries online. Now you can find them there. And I think the interesting part is that within the next 3 months, those entries were seen around 170,000 times. So this means that these young people, literally, they were the change makers for the collectivity. And we repeat the same exercise during Afropunk with the Afropunk army, and where in that case we look at 12 black women that were completely erased by history, and then they were re-putted, online in South African languages in that day. People like Joyce Iroke, and so it was a way to kind of, and then also obviously those entries were seen again hundreds thousands of times. So this is somehow in a nutshell the project, and now we continue with this. We are looking to bring back the project to South Africa, but also to expand it in a much stronger way to the rest of the continent, because this, we really believe that it can be a tool that can support communities around the world in a very effective way.
That is so incredible, because the piece that Robbie is talking to me about is exactly this: the how might we democratize or deepen the understanding of our constitution, because it's quoted all over the world. People use the South African constitution as the holy grail, yet the average South African doesn't even know or understand the preamble. So it's fantastic. So thank you for this, though, because it also just enriches the conversation I will continue to have with Robbie on just how do we make better sense and invite and demystify what this wonderful governing body of work should mean for South Africa, and therefore for the continent and the diaspora. I am going to let you go, because I know I had said to you it was going to be a 45-minute chat. So, but before I do, I want to ask whether there's anything in specific that you wanted to share about the work of the foundation moving forward. What the people who are going to be listening to this piece, how can they get involved? What level of provocation do you want to offer for young people? Because I do believe that, like you correctly say, if we can get to a place where not just young people, but if the average conscious person can challenge themselves to become not just consumers of culture, but creators of culture and producers of knowledge, we will start to effect a positive shift around the narrative on Africa, and reverse many of these long-held stereotypes about what the continent means and what the continent is capable of doing. So two things. One is, if there's anything you would love to share specifically about the work of the foundation moving forward that I haven't covered here, I'm happy for you to do that. And then your parting remarks on just what would be your challenge to young people who are going to be listening to this podcast.
Yeah, sure. So for the first part, please, follow us on social media, on Instagram, on Facebook, so that you can be connected with the things that we do. We just actually launched a podcast that is called Creativity Pioneers, and I think that could be something interesting for many of you. The first conversation I had is with Moki Makura, who's based in South Africa, who is the director of Africa No Filter, a really interesting organization who is investing into transforming, the narrative about the African continent. Yeah. And I think there was an interesting conversation there as the first episode, and then you will see many more. And because the idea of the Creativity Pioneer is to speak with people like yourself that really took this mission at heart and use creativity not only to transform themselves and to really have a unique introspective journey, but also this introspective journey then transform into activities that can really transform society. Maki now with Africa No Filter, but we have artists like Heba Amin or Uzo Iwalewa, that he is also the CEO of the Africa Center in New York, and he's also an accomplished writer. He's a writer of what's the name? Beast of No Nation. That is a movie that is also Netflix starring Idris Elba, and or even people like the current director of the National Gallery, Art Gallery of Zimbabwe. So I think it would be an interesting journey for us to explore more, to form more language, to reshape our thinking around creativity by grounding it on concrete experiences of people. So that, please, check it out. You can find it on our website. You can find it on Spotify. You can find it on Apple Music. Pretty much every platform. Creativity
Awesome.
Pioneer.
Awesome.
And and for young people, if for the young audience who are listening, I think that it's about really rooting your action in these three words that that I really like. That is knowledge, creativity, and activism. The three things together, I think that are three key words and three somehow values that can run a young person life and decision. Not only young people, everybody,
Yes.
but this idea of a nurture your creativity through knowledge, learn, be a sponge, go there, uh, do this introspectively, and then, as we were saying in this idea of creativity pioneering, through an introspective journey and through a deep understanding of yourself, then the capacity of really affecting everything that is around you is going to be so much greater. So just keep studying, and it's funny because normally when you speak about creativity, you tend to avoid this. No, it's creativity is about doing, is about working hard, is about making introspective journey, is about really dig deeper in yourself, and having as many tools as possible in order to then affect the world that is around us.
Oh, that is fantastic. Thank you so, so much. I think you and I can start a movement just called for the creativists, because I often say to people, I am a creativist. My creativity is my form of activism. And I do honestly do believe that if we can normalize the word and centralize the practice, we truly can see the sort of transformation we desire, so that lives can change, but also so that nations can prosper, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well
Fan-
said.
Fantastic. So thank you ever so much, Adama. Here's what we're going to do after this. When we've done the scrubbing and the edit, I'm going to send you a link just so that you are comfortable with the clip that we're going to post. And when you're happy with it, then we'll just post it, and still afterwards send you a link just so that you can share it in your community, and we will share it as far and wide as we can. But thank you so, so much for making the time. I really, really do appreciate it.
No, of course, it was my pleasure. Thank you for the time and for the lovely conversation. And then hopefully sooner rather than later, we could have that famous coffee that we were supposed to have a couple of months ago.
I look forward to it. I actually did mention to Mahati that I'd be speaking to you at some point, and she said, "You know Adama?" I'm like, "No, I don't think I can say I know him, but he is a new associate." So, so when you do come, I look forward to just making the circle bigger, because there are a lot of people who've been affected by the work you do here.
Please give a big hug to Vakati for me next time you see her.
I shall do just that. And you take care and be safe from harm. We'll speak again soon.
All right. Cheers.
All
Bye bye.
right. Thanks. Bye bye.